Hey, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. The next 10 minutes are inspired by a bike ride and an old friend. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to the engine. As I was growing up, my parents ended up splitting up. Obviously not an entirely uncommon thing for the world these days, and it was rough when I was younger. And who wouldn't want to have one Christmas with everyone together? But I love my parents and I accept them for who they are, and they just weren't a great match. Timing's everything. That could have been it. There are all kinds of reasons, and that's not the point. The point is they split up. So my mom moves away, or moves out. I'm living with my dad, and my mom gets a roommate, a housemate. His name was TC. I was about sixth grade, and they live in an apartment together, and in separate rooms, but they're roommates. And TC had recently split with his wife, and he kind of became like this de facto stepdad for me. And he lived with us all the way until I went to college. I kept in contact with him, some not as much as I should have, and absolutely invited him to my college graduation. He was just a handful of people there. And then as I was about to get married, I realized, like, oh my gosh, we haven't invited TC. So, obviously get a hold of him, tell him I'm getting married, and he comes and it's wonderful. Except it wasn't that wonderful. At the wedding, it was an RSVP and it was seated, and he brought a date and the date's daughter. Now, again, these were just friends. I met them after the wedding. Lovely people, but he just brought a date, and that was it. So I, of course, go up to the wedding planner right away and say, "Hey, we need to add 2 seats to whatever table it was," and they do. And I realize after the service that he's leaving because he realized it was a seated wedding and didn't know that I had added 2 seats. So I run out to the parking lot to try to grab him and tell him to stay, and I don't catch him. There's so much going on, I don't have time to grab my phone. I don't have great reception. And so I say to myself, okay, well, I'll just call him when I get back from the honeymoon and, go out to dinner with him and get more time to connect with him. And I come back from my honeymoon and I get a call from my mom, and TC had passed away unexpectedly. And it killed me. It killed me that was the last exchange I had with him. It killed me that the last time we had spent together, he had felt unwelcomed. And I think about it to this day. And a friend of mine had told me, she was like, when people pass away, your relationship doesn't end with them. It changes. It just changes. Like, okay. As kind as this person was trying to be, I didn't buy into that. And it didn't make sense to me. It's like, okay, my relationship hasn't changed. It distinctly stopped. So this is not an uncommon thing to happen. People pass away. We're all born. We're all given a gift. And that gift is revoked at some point. We don't live forever. And you have to come to terms with that at some point as a human being. And about 4 years ago, I injured my knee in jiu-jitsu, so I injured it really badly too. I mean, like, it was a bad pop at my LCL. Had to walk with a cane for about a week and couldn't move fast at all, and I realized, gosh, this is going to be a while. So I got into cycling. I lived near Mount Diablo, and I started riding up and down Mount Diablo. A friend of mine had been bugging me to do it, so I started doing it, and I fell in love with it. Absolutely. And I started going every single day, just up, with or without people. It didn't matter. I'd go up to the mountain. I'd summit at least 2-3 times a week. And when you spend a lot of time by yourself, especially efforting, things bubble to the surface. You're you're contemplating whatever is going on in your head, and you can't always stay focused on one topic because you're putting out a lot of effort. So sometimes it's all you can do to just continue putting out the effort, and your brain wanders. And my dad and I hadn't been talking in recent years. And, father-son disagreements, and he lives far away, so it's easy to avoid conversations. And we just hadn't been talking. And as I was riding my bike, these little memories of him and who he was and the lessons he taught me started to bubble to the surface. Things where I was in kindergarten or first grade, and he bought me a Schwinn 5-speed. And I was super excited about it. Super, super pumped. It was red. It was awesome. And then he had me ride with him to this hospital he was working at. I think it was like 7 miles away or something, but there was this huge hill. And of course, having this 5-speed, I'm like, yes, I get to use the gears. Here we go. So I put it into the lowest gear and start hammering up this hill. And he was like, no. Take it out of the lowest gear. He made me upshift so that the pressure was actually really significant. I remember it to this day, obviously. And I remember having to stop halfway up and it really hurting, but he wouldn't let me downshift to the lowest gear. And I did get over this hill, obviously, and move on with my day. But I remembered that, and I remembered how he made me earn that 5-speed. He made me say, fine, you can have this thing, but it's not for free. You have to effort for it. You have to pay for it. You have the ability to shift gears, but just because you have the ability to shift gears down doesn't mean you get to. And I thought about experiences like this with my dad. And the way I viewed my dad distinctly changed. My relationship with him changed. And I started reaching out to him and telling him the things I had thought about and telling him that I appreciated more than anything what he did on that day and then these other experiences. And we restarted the momentum in our relationship, and now we talk very frequently, and I'm very happy I did that. But it made me think back to what my friend had told me, that when somebody passes away, your relationship with them doesn't stop, it just changes. And it made more sense to me now. When I was thinking about the 5-speed in my experience with my dad, I had a certain relationship. And as I started thinking about these memories and seeing my dad in a different light, my thoughts towards my dad and my thoughts towards our relationship changed. It wasn't a phone call. It wasn't a text message. It wasn't anything distinct that he did that made it change. It's how I viewed it and the lessons I took out of my experiences with him that changed. I was just able to call him or text him and tell him about these things. But even if I couldn't, how frequently do people think about experiences they have with friends or loved ones that are still living and not call them? All the time. People think about other people all the time and they don't call them. But they're still having that relationship. The relationship is ongoing, whether or not you're actually talking to that person, your experiences with them. You're reliving those, and you're experiencing them new every single time. And I started thinking about TC again, and how my relationship really didn't end with him. Yes, I can't text him. Yes, I can't call him. But that doesn't mean that our shared experiences and the lessons he taught me and the things that he did for me and with me, it doesn't mean that those things are somehow less of a relationship than I have with other people that I remember and I don't call. It doesn't mean that they're somehow less because he's not here, and my memories and relationships I have with people that I don't speak with are somehow greater because they still are living. That's silly. I still have a relationship with TC. I still think about the things he taught me. I think about the benefits that he brought to my life. The times I was being a little pain in the rear and he set me straight, or the things he talked to me about. I remember those things, and they still inform my days, and they still help guide me through the world and give me pause and perspective. And if that's not a relationship with someone, albeit different than what you would expect, then I don't know what a relationship is. I'm Todd, and this is the engine that drives me. Go out and crush it.